Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. So, our scene today begins with King Parikshit. He has a question for the sage, Shukadev. And if you recall, if you've been following this from before, you'll know that our scene in the Srimad Bhagavatam begins with King Parikshit, who is cursed to die in 7 days. And so he calls all the sages together, and the greatest of them is the sage Shukadev, son of Vyas, most exalted being of his time. And he wants to hear from him what one should do when one is supposed to die, because he's been cursed to die in 7. The king had been cursed to die in 7 days. And so, as Parikshit, this has been going on for many days and nights. They've been talking the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's been taken us about 2 years to be able to go through that. Well, just once a week. But they were doing it every single day and night. And there were hundreds of sages and wise people, and who would gather to hear. So King Parikshit asked Sukdev. He said, "I'd like to know how Arjun, my grandfather, married Balaram and Krishna's sister Subhadra, who was my grandmother." So let's go back a little bit and give you a reminder. What are we talking about? If you remember, Krishna is the one who speaks the Bhagavad Gita to Arjun. Arjun is asking him questions. They're on a battlefield, and the whole Bhagavad Gita, probably the book of the greatest wisdom in the world, was spoken out there. Now, Krishna and Balaram are brothers, and Balaram being slightly elder, Krishna is Krishna. He's the most amazing of all. And they have a sister called Subhadra. So we'll be hearing a lot about Balaram and what happens next. So Shukadev, the great sage, said, "While traveling far and wide visiting various holy places of pilgrimage, Arjun came to Prabhas. There he heard that Balaram intended to give his paternal cousin Subhadra to Duryodhan in marriage." Now, if you remember also earlier, we've talked about two different groups of people, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And the Kauravas, their eldest was Duryodhan. He was the evil guy who tried everything to kill the Pandavas, the other group, the 5 brothers, Pandavas. And of those 5 brothers, one of them was Arjun. So Balaram was very keen to get Subhadra married to Duryodhan of the Kauravas. But nobody from her family, that is Krishna, did not like it, did not approve the plan, and neither did their parents. But Balaram was still very keen on getting Subhadra married to Duryodhan. But no one else was approving of the plan. So Arjun, meanwhile, happened to be nearby, and he wanted to marry Subhadra. He'd heard about her. He heard that they're trying to get her married to Duryodhan, and he was like, "Oh." So he disguised himself as a mendicant, a renunciate. You might have seen pictures of Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the person who translated this Srimad Bhagavatam that we're reading from, and the Bhagavad Gita, and who started the ISKCON Hare Krishna movement. So you see him here, he's holding a danda, a stick. This is what the renunciates hold. These are what monks in India will hold. And if it's called a triple tridandi. It's got 2 small pieces and 1 big piece. Anyway, so Arjun dressed himself in this clothing to disguise himself as a monk, as a sadhu. And then that way he got into the city of Dwarka. Now, Arjun's plan for obtaining Subhadra as his wife may seem unconventional, but he was not acting without encouragement. In fact, Krishna was his prime conspirator. So Krishna had actually formed this plan with Arjun. And in Dwarka, this is Krishna's capital, so he's in Krishna's capital. Subhadra is Krishna's sister. Balaram is their brother. So In Dwarka, most of the members of the royal family, especially Vasudev, Krishna's father, were unhappy about giving their favorite daughter to Duryodhan. Now, Arjun, in his disguise, stayed there during the monsoon months to fulfill his purpose. Monsoon is when it rains a lot, right? It rains almost every day. So most people, sadhus especially, will not, rishis, these kind of saintly people, will not go anywhere. They will stay in one place during that time, because normally they don't travel around in cars and vehicles of any kind. They won't. Of course, they didn't have cars then. Talking about 7,000 years ago, but they did walk everywhere. So Balaram and the other residents of the city, not recognizing him, offered him all honor and hospitality. So nobody recognized Arjun. He'd done a tremendous job at disguising himself. One day, Balaram, Krishna's brother, brought Arjun home. He invited Arjun for dinner as their guest, and Arjun ate the food that Balaram respectfully offered him. There he saw the wonderful Subhadra, the sister of Balaram and Krishna, who was enchanting in every way. She was enchanting even to great heroes, and powerful warriors were enchanted by her. His eyes opened wide with delight, and his mind became agitated and absorbed in thoughts of her. Arjun was very attractive to women. He himself was a great warrior, a very attractive man, powerful, strong, and a king and a prince, no less. So Arjun was very attractive, and as soon as Subhadra saw him, she wanted to have him as her husband. Smiling bashfully with sidelong glances, she fixed her heart and eyes upon him. Now, the scene is quite strange, because he's supposed to be a monk, a renunciate, not supposed to be, even approaching women like this, at least in any quiet place or private place. And he's coming on to her. And she recognizes, as soon as she saw him, Subhadra knew that Arjun was no sannyasi, no monk, but rather her destined consort. Srila Prabhupada elaborates, Arjun was extraordinarily beautiful, and his bodily structure was very attractive to Subhadra. Subhadra decided within her mind that she would accept only Arjun as her husband. As a simple girl, she was smiling with great pleasure looking at him. So keep this in mind. People think that in India we only have arranged marriages. We're talking here about 7,000 years ago. And no, this was love marriage, if anything at all. And not only that, it was going to be without the consent of the parents. So, actually it was with the consent of the parents, but not with the consent of the brother. Okay, eldest brother, Balaram. So Arjun began to think of her all the time, meditating only on her and waiting for the opportunity to take her away. Arjun had no peace. You know the feeling, right? His heart trembled with passion and desire. Even while being honored by Balaram, Arjun was too distracted to appreciate his gracious hospitality. Arjun's distraction and Balaram's failure to recognize Arjun in his disguise were both arrangements of the Supreme Lord to enjoy his transcendental pastimes. So Krishna has this energy called Yoga Maya. We are all under the illusion of Mahamaya. We are bewildered by this world. We think this body is me, these possessions are mine, this family is mine. We think I, me, and mine. This is all, our world revolves around that. But then there is something called Yogamaya. And Yogamaya is what facilitates Krishna's pastimes. So when Krishna wants someone to not recognize another or to recognize him as God, then Yogamaya comes in. In this case, she didn't want Balaram, who is as powerful as Krishna, to recognize who is Arjun. That Arjun is actually this sannyasi, or this monk who's in this disguise. So she made it such that Arjun would not recognize him. That Balaram would not recognize Arjun. Now, once on the occasion of a great temple festival in honor of the Supreme Lord, Subhadra rode out of the fortress-like palace. So they lived on this beautiful island called Dwarka. There were many, many palaces. She, being the sister, lived in her own palace, but there was, the whole place was fortified on all sides. So Subhadra rode out of the fortress-like palace on a chariot, and at that time, the mighty chariot warrior Arjun took the opportunity to kidnap her. Subhadra's parents and Krishna had sanctioned this. Subhadra's parents are Vasudeva and Devaki, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti identifies the festival as the Rath Yatra for Lord Vishnu on the occasion of his rising from mystic sleep at the end of Chaturmasya. Now, standing on his chariot, Arjun took up his bow and drove off all the valiant fighters and palace guards who tried to block his way. As her relatives, Subhadra's relatives, shouted in anger, he took Subhadra away just as a lion takes away his prey from the midst of lesser animals. And as you can see, Krishna was supporting them, helping them along the way. When Balaram heard of Subhadra's kidnapping, he became as disturbed as the ocean during the full moon. Do you know how the ocean looks during the full moon? Have you noticed how strong it gets and powerful it gets as it splashes against the waves splash against the shore or the cliffs or rocks or whatever they might be. So the analogy is wonderful. Balaram became as disturbed as the ocean during the full moon. But Krishna respectfully took hold of Balaram's feet and together with the other family members pacified him by explaining the matter. So then finally Balaram came around and then happily sent the bride and groom very valuable gifts for their wedding, consisting of elephants, chariots, horses, and male and female servants. Our next narrative is about another very interesting piece of information, or rather some really amazing people. There were two wonderful devotees of Krishna. One of them was called Shrutadev. He was a first-class Brahmin. Now, the Brahmins are considered the highest level of society. Why? They're probably the poorest. They're probably the ones who have least possessions. They are the ones who deeply study the Vedic literature. They study the scriptures. And they teach it to others. And they accept whatever charity is given to them. And whatever they have in excess, they give away in charity. They practice worship of the deity. And they teach others how to do the same. Patan, Patan, Yajan, Yajan, Dan, Pratigraha. 6 activities of the Brahmins. Now, Brahmin in today's time has been taken to be someone who's born in a Brahmin family, and this is absolutely wrong. This was never the intention. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that Guna Karma Vibhagasha. He says, Chatur Varna Maya Srishtam. This Varna system, right, was created by me, this division of society into the Brahmin, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. That is to say, the priests, the warriors or rulers or administrators, the business community, entrepreneurs, business people, all of that, and the laborers, workers, as we say these days, the blue-collar workers, right? All of that, those were the Shudras. So they served the rest of society. And a Brahmin was known by his qualities, not by his birth. This was a very, very big point to understand. Srila Prabhupada brought that understanding to the West and to the world, that this false notion of people being born in a Brahmin family and therefore being a Brahmin is completely wrong. Because then most of them are just working in regular jobs like Shudras. They are not working as Brahmins. They're not working in the real work of priests. And the work of priests is not to get rich and is not to get, even if they are at a temple, doesn't mean that they're there to get rich and accumulate money and wealth and so on. You see in this case, a first-class Brahmin, Shrutadev, perfectly satisfied by rendering unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. So what is the meaning of unalloyed devotion? An alloy is when you mix 2 metals or more. Right? You could take bronze and copper and gold and mix them all together, and they'll still call it gold, but it'll be maybe 14 karat gold, or it'll be 8 karat, 10 karat, whatever it is, right? Depending on the amount of mixture that is there. But unalloyed means like pure gold, 24 karat gold. A pure devotee is a person who has got no material motivation. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Shunya means zero. Abhilasha is desire. And anya is miscellaneous. Has no desires in this world. Why is desire such a big deal? Everybody has desires. You have desires. I have desires. We all have desires. In fact, you cannot get rid of desire. What you can do is you can take your desires, instead of desiring the world, you can begin to desire God. That you can do. Just as you cannot take life away from someone because the soul is never eternal, the body can die, the soul can never die. Similarly, you cannot take desire out of the soul. Desire is intrinsic, it is built in. The search for happiness is built in. The search for pleasure is built in. It is part of who we are at the very deepest foundational level, at the level of our soul. And it cannot therefore be removed from us. But it can be redirected. In fact, it has been redirected by being directed to the world. That is our original mistake. This pursuit of pleasure, this pursuit of happiness, this pursuit of our desires is controlling us. We think we are in control. We are not in control of our mind. We're not in control of our body and its functions. We're not in control of our health. We're not in control of really anything. We think we are so much in control. But our desires control us. Our needs control us. And the more we have, the more we want. We're never satisfied. So that satisfaction, when one realizes I'm not getting any satisfaction from this world. I remember a song when I was growing up, it went, I can get no satisfaction, but I've tried, and I've tried, but I've tried. It's so true. You can get no satisfaction here. No one is satisfied. That's why no one, no matter how many billions they have, no matter how powerful they are, they're not satisfied. They're constantly wanting more because they think somehow getting the next thing or the next thing or the next thing will fill that emptiness within, but nothing does. So he was a first-class Brahmin, priest, and he was perfectly satisfied by rendering unalloyed, pure devotional service to Krishna. He was peaceful, learned, and free from sense gratification. So this sense gratification is what all of us are engaged in. We want to gratify our senses. We want to see wonderful things. We want to hear wonderful things. We want to taste wonderful things. We want to gratify our senses because we believe that to gratify our senses is the ultimate goal of life. Right? If there was no pleasure of the senses, then you wouldn't want to do anything. Why would you want to work? Why would you want to do anything? But the truth is, this is short-lived. As we get older, that pleasure is taken away from us. And now we're not able to enjoy the world anymore the way we did before. Little by little, it's taken away. Why is that? So that we may realize that, if we haven't already, that the world has never satisfied me and never will. I then need to turn towards what will satisfy me. The only thing that will satisfy us, because we are spiritual beings, the only thing that will satisfy our spirit, is therefore God. That is the only thing that will satisfy us. So this Shrutadev, living as a religious householder in the city of Mithila within the kingdom of Videha, he managed to fulfill his obligations while maintaining himself with whatever sustenance easily came his way. By the will of providence, he obtained each day what he needed for his maintenance, and no more. So in other words, if he did try to get some money and try to get something, it was only for bare minimum survival. A little handful of something to eat. That's it. That's all he wanted. And the rest, he was busy with his meditations, with his prayer, with his study, the scripture, and all of that, and his love for God. Satisfied with this much, he properly executed his religious duties. In the purport, it is written, an ideal Vaishnava, a devotee of Vishnu, Brahmin, even if encumbered by the ties of family life, should work only as hard as required to meet his basic obligations without being unnecessarily agitated for material advancement. He should devote the best part of his time and assets to his higher duties in the Supreme Lord's service. If a householder can succeed in this program, doing this, despite the unavoidable difficulties of this degraded age that we live in now, he can expect Sri Krishna's personal attention, as will be seen in the case of Shrutadev. So we're going to see what happens to this guy. Similarly, free from false ego was the ruler of that kingdom. So in that same kingdom of Mithila was the ruler of that kingdom. He too was free of false ego, free of this I, me, and mine. And he was a descendant of the Mithila dynasty named Bahulashva. So we're talking about two different personalities, the Brahmin Shrutadev and the king Bahulashva. Both were devotees and were very dear to Krishna. Pleased with both of them, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, mounted his chariot, which Daruka had brought, and traveled to Videha with a group of sages. So here is a case where Krishna is going personally to meet his devotee. And he's going not only alone, but he's going along with a whole group of sages. Among these sages were Narada, Atri, Vyas, Parshuram, Asita, Brihaspati, and many more. These same sages had been there during the time when Krishna was in Kurukshetra, and they had met with Krishna there as well. Now, I guess they came to Dwarka with him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti writes, Shrutadev and Bahulashva, the Brahmin and the king, were unable to travel to Dwarka to see Krishna because both of them had vowed to regularly worship their personal deity at home. So devotees often have a deity, a form of Krishna in their house, and they worship that form, feeding that deity, and clothing it, and dressing it in wonderful ways, and serving the deity in many ways. So they did not want to abandon their worship, and they stayed at home. So therefore they were not unable to go to Dwarka, although Krishna was personally present in this world. Shri Krishna was very glad to go out of his way to give them his audience. And while leaving Dwarka, his capital city, Krishna's, he insisted the sages who wanted to come with him should join him on his chariot, because otherwise they would exhaust themselves following on foot. Renowned sages would ordinarily never even consider traveling in such an opulent conveyance. But on the Lord's order, they put aside their natural aversion and joined him on his chariot. If Krishna is saying, then they put aside all their other considerations. The fact was, being renounced, they did not engage with worldly people, and they did not partake of their luxuries. These sages, these wise people, these sadhus, rishis, they only traveled by foot. They would travel all across India like that. That means hundreds of miles, thousands of miles even. But they would not get on any kind of vehicle. In every city and town that Krishna passed along the way, the people came forward to worship him with offerings as if to worship the risen sun surrounded by planets. The men and women of these towns drank with their eyes the nectarian beauty of Krishna's lotus-like face, which was graced with generous smiles and affectionate glances. Think about this. God is not just some wicked old man sitting in the clouds. He is beautiful. He has wonderful smiles and affectionate glances. His eyes are like lotus petals, and his face is like a lotus with that level of beauty. So it described here the nectarian beauty of Krishna's lotus-like face, like nectarian beauty of Krishna's lotus-like face, which was graced with generous smiles and affectionate glances. Simply by glancing at those who came to see him, Krishna, the spiritual master of the universe, delivered them from the blindness of materialism. So, simply by glancing at those who came to see him, Krishna glancing on them, they had come to see him, right? Krishna, who is the Guru, the original Guru, Adi Guru, the original God of all gods, the Guru of all gurus, the spiritual master of the universe, delivered them from the blindness of materialism. See, that is the task of the Guru. The Guru opens our eyes to what we were blind to earlier. So far, our eyes are only open to material things, to materialism. Our eyes are only open to the stuff of the world, the pleasures of the world, to go out to a nice restaurant, watch a movie, do this, do that, go out on a date. But all of that is keeping us bound to this world. When we develop a higher attraction, we develop a greater desire for the Supreme Lord, then we start to become free of our attraction of this world. That replaces this. So Krishna, just by glancing on the people as he was passing by, delivered them from the blindness of materialism, as he thus endowed them with fearlessness and divine vision. Imagine this. He's just by glancing at them, he's endowed them with fearlessness. Would you like to have fearlessness? And that comes by associating with that Supreme Being, Sri Krishna. So he gave them fearlessness and divine vision with which to see him. And in the same time, he heard demigods and men singing his glories, which purify the entire universe and destroy all misfortune. Gradually, he reached Videha. Srila Jiva Goswami asks, how did the ordinary people along the path even see Krishna, since their eyes were covered by ignorance, as are our eyes? We don't see God. See, our attention, our focus is based all on this world, and we believe this to be real. But even quantum physicists today tell us, no, this is not real. None of it is. And yet we believe it to be true. The illusion that covers us is so great. So Krishna was giving them the ability to be able to see through the illusion. Krishna's chariot was traveling faster than the wind. So how were they able to see him? This was possible because Krishna's special glance of mercy empowered every one of them with the devotional purity required for entering into his association. So how does one purify oneself to enter into the association of God? That is done by associating with him, by associating with his devotees, with great saintly persons, by hearing his name, by chanting his name, by hearing these pastimes, by remembering these pastimes. In this way, through Shravanam, listening, Kirtanam, speaking about, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, serving him, worshipping him, Atma Nivedanam, surrendering oneself completely to him. In this way, one can attain that, one can become purified. Because associating with him makes one purified. Just as when you put something out in the sun to dry, it gets purified. Not only does it get dried, but it gets purified as well. Fire also purifies. And similarly, the association of the Supreme Lord purifies us through his devotees, through his name, through his Leela, his pastimes. Otherwise, Krishna would have remained outside the scope of their power to see. As he himself states in his instructions to Uddhava in the 11th canto, I can be perceived only by devotion. So what is this devotion and why is it such a big deal? You see, devotion is at the heart of all success in life. Whatever you are devoted to will be successful. If you are devoted to your work, then your work will be successful. You will become very good at it. You will become expert at it. You will achieve great things with it. If you are devoted to your business, the same thing will happen. If you're devoted to your children, they will prosper. They will succeed. They will become wonderful children. To be devoted is to be one-pointed focus. Completely, this is my goal of life. It is to know one's purpose and to be fully absorbed in it and to be devoted to that. And what greater purpose then can there be than to be devoted to God? Because that Supreme Being is the source of everything. And because he is the source of everything, Krishna says, I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So when you have him, you have everything. And you want for nothing. You need nothing. Whether you have or you don't have is not the issue. You will not feel the pangs of need and desire that most people have because you have him. So hearing that Krishna had arrived, the residents of the cities and villages of Vaideha joyfully came forth to receive him with offerings in their hands. Whatever they had, they picked up and they brought to offer him. As soon as the people saw Krishna, their faces and hearts blossomed with affection. Joining their palms above their heads, they bowed down to him and the sages accompanying him, who they had previously only heard about. So there were all these wise people and all these sages that were there with Krishna. Both the king of Mithila, Bahulashva, and Shrutadev, right, remember? Bahulashva, the king of Mithila, and Shrutadev, the Brahmin, fell at Krishna's feet, each thinking that the spiritual master of the universe had come here just to show him mercy. So they thought, he's come for me. Krishna, who is not only the source of all creation, not only the source of all beings, but who is at the same time the spiritual master, the guru of the universe. Why? Because he comes again and again to teach us. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. I come to establish the principles of dharma, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So he is therefore the guru of the universe. He is the Adi Guru, the original guru. All other gurus come from him. He is the one who gives the Vedas. He is the one who gives the Bhagavad Gita. He is the one who gives all the scriptures of the world. All the wisdom of the world comes from him. At exactly the same time, King Mithila and Shrutadev each went forward with joined palms and invited Krishna to be his guest along with the sages. Wanting to please them both, Krishna accepted both their invitations. Thus he simultaneously went to both homes, and neither could see him entering the other's house. In the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada remarks that Krishna and his companions were present in both houses, although both the Brahmin and the king thought he was present in his house only. This is another opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This opulence is described in the revealed scriptures as Vaibhav Prakash, meaning that the one Krishna is able to expand himself into many. He demonstrated this in Dwarka when he married 16,108 wives. And he had separate palaces for each of them. And then the one Krishna that would go to the assembly house to meet with all his ministers and all the other people to conduct the affairs of state, one Krishna would be there. And then at night he would come back home, and the one would turn into 16,108 Krishnas, each of them doing different activities with each of his families, and each of them, the family, thinking that he's there with us. Each of those expansions was as powerful as the other. Only Krishna can do this, nobody else. He also showed the same example when Brahma, the creator of the universe, God doesn't create according to the Vedas, he empowers Brahma to create. So when Brahma saw this boy, Krishna was a boy in Vrindavan at the time. This is way back when Krishna was about maybe 8 years old. And he lived in the town of Vrindavan. And at that time, when Brahma had seen this or heard about this incredible boy, and they're like, who is he? Why are people worshipping him? Why do they think he's so great? So Brahma came and kidnapped Krishna's cowherd boyfriends and all their calves and cows that they had taken out to pasture. That's what the boys did. They took the cows out to pasture every day because they were a dairy community. So Brahma had stolen all of their cows and put them in, and the boys, and put them into a cave for a whole year. What did Krishna do? He expanded. He himself became each and every boy and each and every calf. And then the boys and calves went home to their parents. And the parents thought, my son has come home. And the mother cows thought, my calf has come home. But they didn't know at that point that this was Krishna himself. He himself had become the boys. He himself had become the calves. But the mothers felt more affection for their sons than they had ever felt. Ever. Because they would loved Krishna as well. But now he had come in the form of their boys. And so for a whole year this went on. And Brahma, for whom time passes in a very different way, thought it was just a few moments. And ultimately, when Brahma realized what had happened and how Krishna had expanded himself and created all these, as many boys and as many calves as there had been, he became complete. This was not something any deva, no demigod, no deva could do this. Nobody in the universe could have that power. Only the Supreme Lord, only Vishnu, only Krishna could do that. And so he bowed down before Krishna and begged his forgiveness. And Krishna forgave him, of course. And then they released all the boys from the cave. Boys went home. But under the influence of Yogamaya, they forgot that they'd been in a cave. They acted as if this was just another day. And they were coming back from the fields as they did every day. So in this way, Krishna expands himself into many forms whenever he wants. So now, Krishna went to the home of the king Bahulashva, and he went to the home of the Brahmin Shrutadev. When King Bahulashva, a descendant of Janak means he was the descendant of Janak, the original father of Sita. It was thousands of years before. So being a descendant of Janak, when he saw Krishna approaching his house from a distance with the sages who were somewhat fatigued from the journey, he immediately arranged to have seats of honor brought out for them. After they were all comfortably seated, after all, this was a king, so he had all the seating, he had everything very luxurious and opulent. The wise king, his heart overflowing with joy and his eyes clouded by tears, because he was a great devotee of Krishna. His eyes clouded with tears, bowed down to them and washed their feet with intense devotion. This act of washing the feet has been seen and observed cultures all across the world. When a great personality arrives, you wash their feet. This is also observed when Christ himself would wash the feet of his disciples. Krishna washed the feet of Sudama Brahmin, the poor Sudama Brahmin who had come to his house, his childhood friend. And even in recent time, you see Modi, Prime Minister Modi, washing the feet of the people who were sweeping the city of Delhi. I think this, I'm not sure exactly which city, but yes, he was washing their feet. And so what the king did was that after washing the feet of the sages and of Krishna, then this water which has washed their feet is so powerful it can purify the entire world. He sprinkled it on his head and the heads of his family members. Then he worshipped all those sages by offering them fragrant sandalwood paste, which he put on their forehead to cool them down. He gave them nice flower garlands, fine clothing, ornaments, incense, lamps, arghya, and cows and bulls. So when they had eaten to their full satisfaction, for their further pleasure, the king began to speak slowly and in a gentle voice as he held Krishna's feet in his lap and happily massaged Krishna's feet. Can you imagine the opportunity to have the Supreme Godhead, the Supreme Lord, in your home? You're feeding him, you're massaging his feet, you're holding his feet in your lap. And the king Bahulashva said, "O Almighty Krishna, you are the soul of all created beings. You are the self-illumined witness." He is the witness. And now you are giving your audience to us. Constantly meditate on your lotus feet. So what was it that gave King Bahulashva this great mercy? One thing, that he was constantly meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. That is it. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains Bahulashva's thinking. This is what Bahulashva is thinking. You are the inspiring source, soul of all life and consciousness. Thinking that even an inert, dull person like myself can be awakened to devotional awareness by your mercy. You are the witness of all pious and impious actions. You remember whatever little devotional service I have ever done. You have always been aware of my long cherished secret desire to see you. This is what the king is thinking. He's thinking of himself as a dull person that even a dull person like myself can be awakened by devotional awareness by your mercy. So he's always thinking, I have no credit. I have no value. You have made me valuable. Your mercy is all I am made of. And you remember whatever little service I have given you. You have always been aware of my desire, and now you have come to fulfill it. Then Bahulashva, the king, says, neither Ananta, that is Balaram, nor goddess Shri, that is Lakshmi, nor the unborn Brahma is dearer to me than my unalloyed devotee. The king is saying that you have said this, Krishna. To prove your own words true, you have now revealed yourself to our eyes. What person who knows this truth could ever abandon your lotus feet? Meaning, look at how beautifully Krishna is taking care of each of his devotees. What person who knows this truth would ever abandon your lotus feet when you are ready to give your very self to peaceful sages who call nothing their own? So these sages who are peaceful, they have nothing to give. They have no possessions, no property, no nothing to give. But what they do have is their devotion. What they do have is their love. What they do have is their complete surrender to God. And he says, you are ready to give yourself to them, even though they have nothing to give you in return. So it's not that Krishna is impressed by great riches. He's not impressed by what you have to give him. He wants only one thing, and that is your heart. But that heart you hold and you guard. And even when you so-called fall in love with someone in this world, it's only to someone who can give you what you want, who can meet your needs, who fulfills your desires, who meets your expectations. Only to that person you want to give your heart. But when you come to Krishna, it doesn't work like that. He sees your heart. When you want nothing from him, but you give all of yourself to him, then he gives himself to you. Mirabai said the same thing. I gave him all of myself, and he gave me all of himself. It was such a sweet exchange. Appearing in the Yadu dynasty, he's saying to Krishna, you have spread your glories, which can remove all the sins of the entire universe, just to deliver these and those entrapped in the cycle of birth and death. So that is why Krishna comes. One of the reasons he comes is paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya to annihilate the miscreants, but also to give pleasure to the sadhu, to his devotees, to his loved ones. Obeisance to you, O Supreme Being, Sri Krishna, whose intelligence is always unlimited. Obeisances to the sage Naranarayan, who always undergoes austerities in perfect peace. See, sages undergo austerities. Materialists pleasure their senses. But spiritualists, they control their senses. They withdraw their senses. Like a tortoise withdraws its limbs within its shell. In the same way, a transcendentalist, really an advanced spiritualist, learns the art of withdrawing their senses from their sense objects. This is what is said in the Bhagavad Gita. So the king begs Krishna, please stay a few days in our house along with these great sages and Brahmins. O all-pervading one, and with the dust of your feet sanctify our dynasty. Thus invited by the king, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, sustainer of the world, consented to stay for some time to bestow good fortune on the men and women of Mithila. Meanwhile, the Brahmin Shrutadev received Krishna into his home with as much enthusiasm as that shown by King Bahulashva. After bowing down to Sri Krishna and the sages, now keep in mind, Shrutadev has nothing in his house. He barely begs to get a handful of food to eat every day. He has no interest in worldly things. So what does he do? After bowing down to Sri Krishna and the sages, Shrutadev began to dance with great joy. Yay! He began to dance, waving his shawl. After borrowing mats of grass. He had to borrow even mats of grass and straw. He didn't have them. He borrowed them from his neighbors. He seated his guests upon them, and he greeted them with words of welcome. Then he and his wife washed their feet with great pleasure. With the wash water, the virtuous Shrutadev copiously sprinkled himself, his house, and his family. Overjoyed, he felt that all his desires had now been fulfilled. See what I was telling you about desire earlier? He felt all his desires had now been fulfilled. This is all he ever wanted. He worshipped the sages and Krishna with offerings of auspicious items easily available to him. So he didn't have all the fancy stuff the king had, like sandalwood paste and this and that. What did he have? Fruits that he'd picked, ushira root, pure nectarian water, and fragrant clay, tulsi leaves, kusha grass, and lotus flowers that he had found around. Then he offered them food that increases the mode of goodness. So whatever little they had, they cooked up. He wondered, how is it that I, who am fallen into the blind well of family life, have been able to meet Krishna? You see the humility of these devotees. There's no arrogance, no pride. And how have I also been allowed to meet these great sages, these Brahmins, who always carry the Lord within their heart? Indeed, the dust of their feet is the shelter of all holy places. Meaning, they, the sages, are more advanced than even any holy place you might go to. When his guests were seated comfortably, having each received a proper welcome, Shrutadev approached them and sat down nearby with his wife, children, and other dependents. Then, while massaging the Supreme Lord's feet, see, even he got to massage Krishna's feet, Shrutadev said, "It is not that we have attained the audience of the Supreme person only today, for we have been in fact associating with him ever since he created this universe with his energies. And then he entered into it in his transcendental form." See, people don't understand this. They just think there's the universe. Oh yeah, and this universe, they say, this is Brahman, this is God. Oh yeah, but who created it? No, it just happened. How does it just happen? Oh, it is consciousness. Oh, really? But here he's saying very clearly, you created this universe and then entered into it in your transcendental form. It is true that God has no form, no material form. He has a transcendental form. It is true that he has no qualities. He has no material qualities, but he has transcendental qualities. So although he is nirgun, no material qualities, he has spiritual qualities. Although he has no material form, he has spiritual form. The Supreme Lord is like a sleeping person who creates a separate world in his imagination and then enters his own dream and sees himself within it. So this world is the dream of God, and he has now entered into it. In the illusion of his dream, a sleeping person creates an apparent world, complete with cities populated by fictional products of his own imagination, in somewhat the same way the Supreme Lord manifests the cosmos. And as her service to Krishna, Maya, remember we talked of Maya earlier, Mahamaya, the illusion of this world, the matrix created by Maya. As her service to Krishna, Maya deludes the conditioned souls into accepting her as real, her temporary, insubstantial manifestation. So all these are the manifestations of Maya, and we have taken them to be real. And we have devoted our life to the things of the world. He says to Krishna, you reveal yourself within the hearts of those persons of pure consciousness who constantly hear about you, chant about you, worship you, glorify you, and converse with one another about you. So this is the process. And one who remembers and follows this process will see God. You will see Krishna face to face. Be with him, just as this Brahmin Shrutadev is doing. You reveal yourself within the hearts of those persons of pure consciousness who how do you have pure consciousness? By doing the process. What is the process? Constantly hearing about Krishna, chanting about him, worshipping him, glorifying him, and conversing with one another about him. Although you reside within the heart, you are very far away from those whose minds are disturbed by their entanglement in material work. Indeed, no one can grasp you by his material powers, for you reveal yourself only in the hearts of those who have learned to appreciate your transcendental qualities. He says someone who is absorbed in materialistic things cannot experience God, because they're disturbed by their entanglement in material work. So therefore Krishna teaches us the art of work. First thing in the Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga. How to work, how all work should be done as an offering unto God. And when your work is done as an offering to Him, He says you're entitled to work, but not to the fruits of your work. So when you offer your work as an offering to Him, then everything becomes purified. Everything becomes part of your service to Him. The purport, it is written, the all-merciful Supreme Lord is in everyone's heart. Seeing Him there, however, is possible only when one's heart is pure, completely purified. Materialists may demand that God prove His existence by coming into view as a result of their empirical investigations. Through into a microscope or some telescope, show me God, they will say. But God has no need to respond to such impudence. Right? As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samadvitaha mudhoyam na bijanati loko mam ajam avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. The word used here is mudho. Mudha means foolish persons. So I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, by Maya. And therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Infallible is a very important word. It means someone who has no flaws. I am infallible. We are fallible. He is infallible. Let me offer my obeisances unto you. You are realized as the Supreme Soul. He's telling Krishna, you are realized as the Supreme Soul by those who know the absolute truth. Whereas in your form of time, you impose death upon the forgetful soul. So those who are forgetful, they go through the experience of birth and death and old age and disease. The realized soul, the one who has understood that Krishna is the Supreme Soul, who knows the absolute truth. This is the absolute truth. Such a person, although they go through all the experiences of life, including birth and death, do not experience it in the same way. To them it is not a tragedy. Krishna says in the Gita, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. How is that possible? We all lament for the living and the dead. But Krishna says the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. And that is because they have understood the absolute truth. They have understood that even as souls, we are neither born nor do we die. Krishna is never born and never dies. So the person who is deluded, who is forgetful about his true identity, is then subject to time and death. You appear, he's telling Krishna, you appear both in your causeless spiritual form and in the created form of this universe. You appear as this universe, but you also appear in your transcendental form, thus simultaneously uncovering the eyes of your devotees and obstructing the vision of the non-devotees. Purport, it is written, when the Lord appears before His devotees in His eternal spiritual form, their eyes become uncovered, in the sense that all vestiges of illusion are dispelled and they drink in the beautiful vision of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. The beautiful vision of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. For the non-devotees, on the other hand, the Lord appears as material nature, His universal form, and in this way He covers their vision so that His spiritual personal form remains invisible to them. So the most people can relate to is the universe, the world, that's it. And they think this is all there is, this is God. Well, it is a part of God. It is His emanation, the light emanating from Him. Is the Brahman, the Brahmajyoti creates this world, but it is not the fullness of Him. You are that Supreme Soul, and we are your servants. How shall we serve you? Simply seeing you puts an end to all the troubles of human life. After hearing Shrutadev speak these words, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who who relieves his surrendered devotee's distress, took Shrutadev's hand in his own and smiled. So he held Shrutadev's hand. Acharya Vishwanath comments that Krishna's taking Shrutadev's hand and smiling was a gesture of friendship to tell him, yes, you know the truth about me, and I also know all about you. Now let me tell you something special. Then Krishna said, my dear Brahmin, you should know that these great sages who have come here, they have come just to bless you. They travel throughout the universe with me, purifying the world with the dust of their feet. One can gradually become purified by seeing, touching, and worshipping temple deities, places of pilgrimage, and holy rivers. So people go in India, as you might know, to the holy rivers. There's different places of pilgrimage, and there are many temples to worship. But he says one can be gradually purified by going to these places, but one can attain the same result immediately simply by receiving the glance of exalted sages like these. Just by their glance, there is so much mercy. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 9th chapter, text 44, Prahlad, if you might remember him, the young boy who was being tormented by his father Hiranyakashipu, and finally Vishnu appears as Narsingha, half lion, half man, and kills the boy's father. And then everyone's terrified of Narsingha because he's in such a rage that, the father had been tormenting this boy, trying to kill him in so many ways. So the boy Prahlad says, my dear Lord Narsingha, I see that there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance. Not caring for the big cities and towns, they go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all of suffering humanity. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring this knowledge to the people and to bring them back to your lotus feet. So this is what a true devotee wants. He wants everyone to come to Krishna. Come and enjoy the bliss. Come and enjoy the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. Come and join us in the spiritual world. By his very birth, a Brahmin is the best of all living beings in the world. Why is he the best of people? Because he has devoted himself to God in this way. He's given up everything. He depends completely on Krishna. He's not out there trying to hustle or try to make a ton of money, trying to prove his worth or trying to achieve something. No. Just whatever is required to maintain body and soul together. So by his very birth, the Brahmin is the best of all living beings in the world, and he becomes even more exalted when he is endowed with austerity, learning, and self-satisfaction. What to speak of devotion to me, Krishna? Austerity means to do difficult things for the sake of God. Learning and self-satisfaction, to be self-satisfied, be satisfied with the self alone, not by the stuff, but by the self alone. When such a person has devotion to God, this person is considered the greatest of all. Even my own four-armed form of Vishnu is no dearer to me than a Brahmin. Within himself, a learned Brahmin comprises all the Vedas, all the wisdom of the Vedas, just as within myself, I comprise all the demigods. Ignorant of this truth, foolish people neglect and enviously offend a learned Brahmin, who, being none different from me, is their spiritual master and very self. They consider worshipable only such obvious manifestations as divinity, as my deity form. So the people think, oh, the deity is very important, but the Brahmin, he's just like, just another guy, right? So Brahmins engage in many activities, such as the worship, such as meditation, such as study of the scripture, all of that, which we've talked about. And what Krishna is saying is that people focus on his form, his deity in the temple, rather than Krishna like that, but they are worshipped in the temple as the deity. And this is generally what people do is they worship the deity, but they don't realize that the Brahmin is more important to Krishna. The devotee is more important because he has realized me, Krishna says. A Brahmin is firmly fixed in the knowledge that everything moving and non-moving in the universe. So he's fixed in the knowledge, fixed in that knowledge that everything moving and non-moving in the universe and also the primary elements of its creation are all manifest forms expanded from me, from Krishna. Therefore, you should worship these Brahmin sages, O Brahmin, with the same faith you have in me. If you do so, you will worship me directly, which you cannot do otherwise, even with offering of vast riches. So he's saying, when you worship a highly evolved person, worshipping them is as good as worshipping God directly. Because those persons who have nothing but God in their heart and in their mind, who have got nothing but Krishna in their heart and mind, such persons are no different than him. So instructed by the Supreme Lord Shrutadev with single-minded devotion, worship Sri Krishna and the topmost Brahmins accompanying him. And King Bahulashva did the same. Thus both Shrutadev and the king attained the ultimate transcendental destination. Thus the personality of Godhead, who is devoted to his own devotees, stayed for some time with his two great devotees, Shrutadev and Bahulashva. So it says he's devoted to his own devotees. Isn't that amazing? And he stayed with both of these devotees in those two forms. Both of them thought he's with them, teaching them the behavior of perfect saints. Then Krishna returned to Dwarka. So, just so you know, we've been talking about the Krishna book, and that's what that is. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. That is Prabhupada, who has translated, that is the summarized version of what we've been reading in the Bhagavatam. We have been doing the full version, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. But the Krishna book that you saw just now, that is the summarized version. And in this book, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada concludes, the instruction we receive from this incident is that King Bahulashva and Brahmin Shrutadev were accepted by Krishna on the same level because they were pure devotees. So Krishna didn't discriminate because one is a king and the other is just a poor priest. No. They were pure devotees. This is the real qualification for being recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it has become the fashion of this age to become falsely proud of having taken birth in the family of a Kshatriya or a Brahmin, we see persons without any qualification claiming to be Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishya. As it is stated in the scriptures, Kalau Shudra Sambhava, in the age of Kali, in this time that we live in, everyone is born a Shudra. Shudra, as we mentioned earlier, is the laborers, the working class. No one is born a Brahmin. This is because there is no performance of the purificatory process known as the samskars, which begin from the time of the mother's pregnancy and continue up to the point of the individual's death. No one can be classified as a Brahmin, Kshatriya or Vaishya simply by birthright. If one is not purified by the process of the seed-giving ceremony or the Garbhodhan samskar, he is immediately classified among the Shudras because only the Shudras do not undergo this purificatory process. Sex life without the purificatory process of Krishna consciousness is merely the seed-giving process of animals. But Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection by which everyone can come to the platform of a devotee or Vaishnava. This includes having all the qualifications of a Brahmin. The Vaishnavas are trained to become freed from 4 kinds of sinful activities: illicit sex, indulgence in intoxicants, gambling, and eating animal foodstuffs. No one can be on the Brahminical platform without having these preliminary qualifications, and without becoming a qualified Brahmin, one cannot become a pure devotee. So with that, we end today's Bhagavatam. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your time. Thank you for all your love. Thank you for all your support. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, do write them down in the comments. Or if you got a question, ask it now. So some of you that are here live, I'd love to answer your question. I'll give it a minute. You can type it in. I'll see it here. If not, then do write it in the comments. We're on the 130th video on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So each of them is about an hour. That's a lot. You can go back to the beginning and start from the beginning of the Bhagavatam. It's all on my YouTube channel. There's a separate playlist. It's called the Divine Love Podcast. So do look for that and do read and do check it out. You can also get the books by Srila Prabhupada and read those yourself. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Hare Krishna. I'll see you next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern.